24th, Wednesday, September 24th, Shade Tree Commission meeting. We have our agenda in front of us. If the first applicant is ready to go, we're ready to set if the board is ready. First on the list is, if we're sticking to our agenda, right, Sue, from what you sent us? 360 Willia Road, demo existing house, construct new. 760, excuse me. 7 trees to be removed, replant 19, 10 of which need to be large canopy.
Mr. Chairman, just for a little background, this applicant was in the July meeting, which did not occur for lack of a quorum. So they are pretty far along in the process here. This is their last step in getting their grading permit.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Bob Wager. I'm the project engineer. I was here before. They gave me a few things they wanted to change.
Move the mic over.
Mike, okay. One of the things that they wanted to do was move this pipeline to the basin over here to get away from some of these trees. I did that. That's over here now. Okay. Another thing was I wanted to take out this the 36-inch tulip tree by the driveway. I did that, and I added additional trees. We have 6 additional trees that I added to the plan, and that is removal chart and the planning schedule are revised. I moved some tree protection fence around because we're changing the location of that. The quantity of tree protection fence is approximately the same. And that's pretty much it. I took care of the engineer had a couple of comments. I took care of those too.
Okay. And this was from our talk.
Yeah, from
in
the
July,
previous meeting. Yeah.
Okay. All right, board. He was to us in July, made some revisions to a plan that we had made a few recommendations on. So he's back here tonight with those revisions made, so that he can go on to proceed with his project here.
I also added a note up here about cutting if you had to go through tree roots to cut them cleanly.
Like we talked about?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any questions for him tonight?
What's the tree you said the new tree was removed? Is that shown on?
It's by the
Sorry,
up by the driveway, right near the road, a 36-inch tulip tree.
and the 48-inch tree, is there, what kind of tree is that there? I don't see any.
Where are we looking? That
just
was
the-
already taken out.
That was already taken out?
That was already taken out in the previous plan, yeah.
But that's in the. Were you here for that?
Yeah, that he made the changes that we had asked him to.
Okay.
All right, so board, all in favor? Aye, ayes have it.
Thank you.
Go with the project. Okay, we're up 205 Stratford Avenue, or do you want to make a change to, or? Oh,
The one applicant, they are here basically on a technicality just because of the fact that it's of the subdivision of land. So I would request that we put them forward.
which one's that, Steve?
This is 560, 564 Maplewood Avenue. Emilio and Carol Gravagna and Alicia Pratt and Carrie Rohr subdivide and consolidate 3 lots into 2.
That was it?
Good evening. Rob Lambert, as Steve said, we're here on a technicality. We don't show any trees on the plan. The neighbors have bought an adjacent parcel which was empty. They're going to split it basically in two pieces and merge it into their lots. There are no improvements proposed, but we're just here because it qualifies as a subdivision.
So that's it.
That's it.
In the ordinance, any subdivision has to come before this commission, but there's actually no work. This is all a paper project. So it's just deed recording and plans.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Move forward.
Okay, we're back to our 205 Stratford Avenue, subdivide existing parcel into 5 lots, retain existing dwelling, construct 4 new dwelling lots.
Good evening, Chuck Dobson from Inland Design, here on behalf of the applicant, 115 Stratford Avenue. We were here at the July meeting when there was not a quorum. We subsequently came back in August as well. There were some recommendations made. Since that time, we've met with staff. We've also attended the Planning Commission meeting. We've got a lot of good direction, and I'm hopeful this is our last round with you folks here tonight. Just to review, it's a subdivision located in the R4 residential zoning district. I'll go ahead and concept plan, which requires a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet. We have a lot, an existing lot of about 2.4 acres that has an existing house. The existing house will remain on a lot of just over an acre, and the 4 new lots will be approximately 12,000 square foot minimum apiece. So as you can see on the plan here, the existing house is located in the center of the sheet. It takes access off of Stratford Avenue. Lot number 1, which is located just to the left of the existing house, will have a single driveway accessing Stratford Avenue. And then we have 3 lots that have, while they have frontage on Eagle Road, they'll be accessed via common driveway also off of Stratford Avenue. Since we were in front of you folks last time, there have been some changes, and I'd like to review those with you now if I could. First and foremost is that when we appeared in front of you, there were a total of 6 lots at one point. That has been reduced to 5. The sanitary sewer connection, which is taken off of Stratford Avenue, is now going to be taken down the center of the road and then up the common driveway, so there will be no tree impacts as a result of the installation of that sanitary sewer line, which there were before. There has been, at the request of the Planning Commission, pointed out over here, a new detention berm, which was added for the purposes of additional stormwater controls. I want to point out that the original proposal was to capture and control runoff from each of the 4 lots and store those in seepage beds on each lot, which would capture and hold the entire 100-year storm. We had met the requirements for stormwater rate and volume reduction as set forth in the ordinance in this area. Some of the neighbors downslope indicated that they would like to see a little bit additional. The Planning Commission asked us to install this additional facility, which we've done, and that's now in the Township engineer for review. There is also, at the request of the Township, we have shown sidewalks along Eagle Road and along Stratford Avenue. The sidewalk alignment along Stratford Avenue has no tree impacts. The sidewalk alignment along Eagle Road has 2 tree impacts. However, in discussion with staff, it was indicated that there could be methods by which the sidewalk could be installed where it needs to be and the trees could potentially be saved, and I'll defer to Mr. Norsini if he chooses to opine on that. The landscaping plan that we have, and the sets that were submitted to you have the grading and drainage plans, the demolition plan, existing features plan, erosion control plan, which shows silt fence, tree protection fencing, and all those elements that are required. And then we also have the landscaping plan as well, which goes through and indicates the replacement trees. So it identifies those trees to be removed and the replacement requirements for same. It also identifies the Class A buffer requirements that are in this particular district. So this is the plan that's in front of you as a result of a lot of hard work, a lot of meetings, and a lot of consultation with the Township and staff. So I'm just here to answer any questions you have, and hopefully at the end of this meeting you are comfortable with it and we can move on as we go.
Originally, was the existing dwelling to be removed? Is that?
No, this existing dwelling was always
Never?
to stay.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought there was more like a park. Was there a park concept in
Well,
that?
there was an open space parcel located back here. However, it was deemed that because that was still a separate lot. It would still be a 6-lot subdivision and considered a major subdivision. The applicant considered that and thought, well, it's probably better for everybody if they just do the fee in lieu for the parkland, reduce the number of lots to 5, call it a minor subdivision plan, and then administratively, things are a little bit simpler, at least at the township level. So that's where we are.
Mr. Chairman, if I could direct you to landscaping plan sheet 9. I'd asked Mr. Dobson for your benefit and edification to break down the tree requirements based on the zoning planning buffer and also the compensatory trees to give you a better idea when we say what is required and why. So there's the requirements for the buffer, and then there's the compensatory requirements, which is really what the shade tree ordinance deals with, whereas the buffer comes from another ordinance. And on what Mr. Dobson said, looking out in the field, it's very hard to tell how, right now there's a symbol of a tree on the plan, and you'll see the sidewalk actually goes around the one, which is a 25-inch cypress, I believe, or no, I'm sorry, a 31-inch Norway maple.
Correct, which is invasive.
And the other one is where there's a little bit of sidewalk impact, is a 27-inch Norway maple. And there are ways to reduce the impact on the roots with the use of geotextile, additional stone. We can try to have the applicant, reduce that pressure on those roots. Really can't tell at this point because, we don't have grades out there, and it's hard to tell the exact location of the tree. But the sidewalks were requests by staff and planning commission.
Okay. Let's go back to our compensatory trees. On our new plan in front of us, we have how many removals in total? It's on this, it's on our landscape chart, number 9. Is it on page 9, our removal list?
Yeah, it is. It's down the lower portion of it, almost in the center. There's a table, it's called a landscaping compliance chart.
Okay.
And what it does is it identifies the trees to be removed in 3 categories. Those are your standard trees, I guess your mature trees, and then your heritage trees. And they have different compensatory requirements. The first one being 1 for 1, the second one being 3 for 1, and the third one being 6 for 1. And what we've done is we've calculated the total number of trees required based on the compensatory requirements and also the buffer as 57. We felt that as it's laid out, we probably are right where we need to be as far as an aesthetic value is concerned with the trees proposed. So the applicant, and there's a note below, is indicating that there's 12 trees that are not shown in the plan, and he's willing to contribute $500 per tree fee in lieu for a total of $6,000.
Okay. So where does it show what trees are coming down? The list of how many trees?
If you want, the list is actually in here. You can see replacement trees. You have 17 trees to be removed and 1 replacement. If you want to see which trees those are in particular, you'll have to go to the demolition plan, which clearly shows existing trees and identifies those to remain and then those to be removed.
Demolition plan, what page is that?
That's correct. That's sheet 4.
And this differs slightly from last month's plan, the removals, the number of removals?
It's actually less than, yes. We've
Less.
actually reduced the number of trees to be removed from last month's plan, yes.
So how many trees are you removing?
We have,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Oh, you have that.
yeah,
You have that
it's
one.
on sheet 9.
Just,
From my count, it's 22.
That sounds right.
18, 22. It's a little hard to see,
It's a little hard to figure out
figure
here.
out
Yeah,
because
we
it's in the
have
middle.
22, that's right. We have 17 6 to 18 inch trees to remove, 2 19 to 29 inch trees to be removed, and 3
3
30 and up to be removed. So it's 22, that's correct.
And per our ordinance, the number of trees required is 41,
Yes.
and how many are you showing going back in per our ordinance?
Well, we have 41 replacement trees required. We have a total of 45 proposed, but that also includes the buffer plantings that are required as well.
It's better if you just like separate the buffer, because we don't deal with the buffer.
Actually,
So-
Mr. Miller, I do have one question for the applicant. So you note that the Class A buffer is required along the west and south property lines?
Yes.
Yeah.
And did you put the required 40 trees on those lines? Or are they mixed throughout the
They're
development?
mixed throughout the development. We don't have, I mean, we can apply compensatory plantings or buffer plantings however you wish to do it. I mean, we have a certain number of trees going in, so if the Shade Tree Commission says of the 45 trees that we have proposed, 41 are required compensatory plantings, that's fine, we can do that. And then the balance of the buffer plantings that aren't shown would still be part of the fee in lieu, if you understand what I mean, because there's a total number of trees required for compensatory plantings and buffer plantings, and what we did is we added them all up, showed that, okay, 50, we have a total of 57 required between the compensatory and buffer plantings. We have a total of 45 proposed, and for that addition, for the 12 that we don't show, the applicant is offering a fee in lieu.
And my point to the commission was, I think my request would be that we look at that, the reason for the buffer plantings is there from the zoning standpoint, is to literally buffer the new development from the existing. And I would just ask you to take a look at that as you go through.
Take a look at it for what purpose?
Well, so, I just asked Mr. Dobson, are they meeting the buffer requirements to a T, meaning are all the required buffer plantings along the property line?
Right.
No, they're not. They're interspersed throughout the development. So they're bringing this to you. So usually you only opine on compensatory trees, but you do have the opportunity to opine on whether you would like to see more of the buffer trees along the buffer planting line.
That's correct, and the reason is because there's a significant amount of vegetation along both Stratford Avenue and Eagle Road. So the ordinance specifically allows that while the requirements must be met, if they can't be placed where they're supposed to be placed, then the applicant should have the opportunity to basically put them throughout the development, at least to meet the planning requirements. So at the end of the day, we're required to plant 57, we show 45, so we don't show 12 that are required for compensatory plantings and buffer plantings, and the applicant's offering a fee in lieu of $500 for those trees that aren't shown.
Can you point out where the buffer is?
Yeah, well, the buffer is, we have a large existing tree starting up here on Eagle Road.
Right.
There's an existing garage with a driveway, so there's no vegetation. And just west of that, we have another large tree, and then there's a arborvitae hedgerow mixed in with a bunch of mature trees and shrubs down here to a hemlock. Now we have, right along here where there's, it would be just west of lot number 3, there is buffer planting being proposed there because that is the one area where there wasn't a lot of vegetation. So we kind of filled it in where we could. And then there are significant trees along the frontage of the existing dwelling. Again, there's a group of 7. Those are birch trees, and then we've kind of added some additional plantings to kind of fill that gap in. We've got another couple of mature trees and some pine trees to fill that gap in. And then we've got additional plantings along the front here that exist as well.
So there's a buffer required all down Eagle and all across Stratford, right?
Right, and Mr. Dobson was correct of what the ordinance allows, so that the ordinance, my interpretation is they don't want you to cut down mature trees to then go ahead and plant a buffer.
Correct.
So if you go by the property on Stratford Avenue, you will see that Stratford Avenue line is pretty well planted with existing trees. So they are showing you and saying, we have this buffer requirement. We're asking to intersperse these trees throughout the lot because it may not make sense completely to try to stick them in along the buffer when we have mature trees along that buffer.
Correct. And maybe I can clarify, of the 57 required and 45 proposed, those are only canopy trees. They don't include the flowering trees and the evergreen trees. So I think the way to look at it would be if there are 41 trees required for replacement trees, we actually show them. We also show all the evergreen trees and flowering trees required by your buffering requirements. But then what we do is we only have an additional 4 canopy trees which would be required for your buffer. So there would be an additional 12 canopy trees required for the buffer that we don't show because we just can't fit them on the plan comfortably. So our objective was to do what made sense in the long term for this project and come up with a plan that made sense instead of just throwing a bunch of circles on the plan and having them die out over the years.
So just to be clear, the plan that you're showing here is compliant with the existing code to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. So we have as many as our compensatory trees as can be planted with the addition of 12 trees, pay fee in lieu of $500 per tree for $6,000 to the tree fund. Is that correct? So our compensatories have been fulfilled.
Correct. So what they're not planting, they're going to provide, they're stating they would provide the fee in lieu of to the shade tree fund.
Now, is it up to planning to make sure that their buffer trees are as they are to? We're not voting on that, right?
No, it's part of the zoning review.
Right, so our compensatory allotment has been fulfilled in this plan.
Correct, with the fee in lieu of, yes.
With the fee and lieu. Okay, so everybody understands that.
Right.
So our next point is about the sidewalk. That has been proposed or that has been recommended by the Planning Commission, Steve?
That was a recommendation of the Planning Commission back on the original plan. And perhaps there's a way we can, if there's concern that those 2 trees could be damaged, we could ask the applicant to include, if the trees live, that's great, they look wonderful, the sidewalk's in. If they, for some reason in the future, or through the construction of the sidewalk, would be damaged or be determined to be taken down, we can ask the applicant to just include that compensatory trees into the mix for that.
Would that be acceptable?
That's fine, yes.
Would it be worthwhile for our arborists to go out to examine the condition of these 2 maple trees, see if to
I mean,
withstand this?
we can measure off the street to the approximate location of the sidewalk. My thought would be, really, once construction starts and we see we have grades, that would be the time to do it. And we can make a call in the field with John Hosback. If he says, look, these trees are going to have to come down, we would notify the applicant that the required compensatory trees or fee in lieu of will now be required. And we could ask Mr. Dobson to put a note onto the plan to that effect.
And then the sidewalk would be just straightened out?
Correct.
Yeah, I think so. Mhm.
Okay.
So I was going to say, if you're willing to make the compensatory contribution, whether or not the trees live or die, to move you along, I think I would support that.
Yeah, I agree. And just for the record, John was out there with our landscape architect. He was actually out there twice. So he has good working knowledge of the site. We've had a lot of communications with him. While the ordinance doesn't differentiate between tree species, it does note that the Norway maples are not, while they're large and they look nice, they're not a desirable species. So he wasn't as concerned. I think if that was something like, an oak or a large, sugar maple, red maple, he'd probably be a little bit more, conservative about it. But he wasn't all that alarmed by, because of the type of tree that they are.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to go for a vote here, Board? Do we have any other questions as far as what's proposed? Okay. As it is here, all in favor? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Steve, I guess I'll coordinate to do the final vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is 148 East Lancaster Avenue. Remove 10-inch evergreen, plant 1 tree. Tree is overgrown site.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name's Dave Fitzgerald. I'm the owner of the building at 148 East Lancaster Avenue. I presented to the board back in the summer when there wasn't a quorum, so I'm here to present again. So what I have here are just some pictures. Our building is across the street from the Wayne Hotel. We have a spruce tree in the front of the building. We wish to take it down. We talked the last time I was here about possibly planting an ornamental tree in its place, which we are open to if we can fit it into the design. The board was going to furnish us with some recommendations for trees that might look good against our building. But the tree is getting quite overgrown for the space. It's a small space in front of our building. Most of the buildings on Lancaster Avenue where we are right up to the sidewalk. We're one of the few that's set back. And it's you can see from this picture the proximity to the Township tree, which is here, right in the curbside of Lancaster Avenue. And my plan is, if you can see that, it's a little small. My plan was to just to landscape the space into more of a garden type of area than what it is now, which is one tree with a bunch of plants planted around it, which has been there since I've owned the building in 1989.
Can you turn that around? That's upside down for us. Thank you.
Yeah. This would be the Lancaster Avenue side. This is the front of the building.
Gus, did you have a chance to go out to look at this tree?
I didn't get to look at it just from the street,
Yeah.
but I mean, when I remember, sir, when you were here last time, I know you were concerned there was some possible storm damage.
Yeah, the top
initially
of the
from
tree.
this past winter.
The top of the tree is basically broken off. You can see there how it's that happened over the winter with the bad storms that we had, and I know a couple people on the board the last time we were here thought the tree was a lovely tree. I respectfully disagree. I'm not a big fan of the tree. You know, it drops a lot of sap almost daily. We just think the building and the street would look better if we were able to improve the landscape and take down the tree.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand your position on it, owner of the building. We hesitated on it because of the species of the tree, and its growth habit is indicative of that species of the tree. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's a weeping Norway spruce, so that's actually how it's supposed to look. And as people on a tree commission that like to save trees, this is actually a tree that aesthetically, to us, I understand, not to you, the building owner, actually enhances your property rather than take away from it because of its grace and of its status in front of your building. So our hesitation was to take that out, and what are we going to be left with on our streetscape along Route 30, where we have this interesting, to us, aesthetic tree, and take it out and have nothing. So that's
Well,
why we hesitate. I understand your position.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I've lived here. We bought the building in 1999. I've lived here since in this area since 1989. Prior to that, I never knew the building was there. And most people I talk to, when I say, "Oh, I'm the building next to the Gap," they're like, "What building next to the Gap?" Because we're set back and there's a big tree in front of it. So, from our standpoint, we'd like to remove it. We may not, because we missed, I think, a planning season timeframe because of the snafu with the first meeting that I was at. We may not replace the tree until the springtime, as it sits now, but we would like to replace the tree, or at least take it down and replace it with something a little bit more, little less overgrown, smaller tree in stature, more of a garden type atmosphere.
To that end, now's a great time for planting trees, if you're going to be
Yeah, it's
diligent
just
on the watering.
it-
I dare say you could probably get two, like one on either side of your door to create sort of almost like a,
We don't have
Effect.
the space on the door because there's a walkway to get to a back parking lot.
the other little plot of soil on the other side of the door. I love,
right here?
yeah, I walk by there every day. It's
Oh, okay.
it's a great spot. But you could do something that would be, still preserve the streetscape. I mean, possibly, it all depends on the preparation of the planting bed.
I
but-
think that space is probably 4 feet at its widest. So it would have to be a small tree.
You mentioned that you said some folks didn't know your building, or you didn't know where the building was at one point. I have to say, on the opposite side of that, as soon as I remember when you brought this to our attention, I knew exactly where this was because of the tree. I mean, maybe because it's kind of what I do, but I
Right.
knew exactly where this was because of that tree. So to me, it's kind of like a landmark almost. And I don't know what Jim thinks of that, because we knew exactly where this was when he brought it to our attention. So,
It's just in the middle of Wayne, it's the most interesting tree in the middle of Wayne.
Yeah.
For us, it's your building, I understand that.
Yeah.
For us, it's a difficult position because I would walk down the street and I'm not looking at the Gap sign, I'm looking at your tree. I'm
Right.
saying, wow, this is a pretty cool tree to be here in the middle of Wayne. You don't see it, it's an arboretum kind of tree, it's interesting. And I don't see your building because I just see this great tree. That's what I see. You got a beautiful building too, but I see the tree. What does it bring to the community? I mean, aesthetically, I feel it brings a lot more just having its presence there, and we're just an advisory where we just recommend things. For the most part, I mean, if you could see to it to preserve it, we'd like to see you to preserve it. Just for, I feel it's an older tree, probably maybe 50 years old. Maybe you have pictures that show it's not there, but I feel it's in that range, 50 to 70 years old. It has interest. It gives interest to the community. At least if you're going to plant something back, you got to plant another tree or something back of interest there, not just a cherry tree, just something that's significantly interesting, maybe
Well,
smaller to take it.
Yeah, my thought is a tree that doesn't grow that tall.
Right.
I mean, an ornamental tree, I'm happy to listen to your recommendations on what type of tree would look good there.
Right.
Jim was also saying that top could be, it wouldn't have affect the tree negatively, and it could still have a nice shape that, where the damage could be trimmed up top, and, it would still have a nice shape up top. I have to agree, it's a beautiful tree. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but if you really look at that tree, the texture of it is gorgeous, so, I really think, looking at the landscaping there, if you would embellish the land, I can't even tell what those flowers are there, if they're flowers or whatever. They look like some grass or something. But, I really think you could it's like a gem there, and you could really improve the setting of it with the landscaping around it. It would look a lot better even. Because those are kind of like weedy looking flowers.
Yeah, they're flowers. I mean, most of the plantings were planted there before we owned the building.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, if you set up the table there, if you surrounded that little gem with some really nice plantings, it would even look better. And you could fix the top. so that, where the damage was, and it would still, that tree could be trained, right, Jim, more or less, to keep a nice shape.
Sure, it could be attended to and worked on. I guess the crux of the matter, a lot of times the business owners come into us because they have a bashed up pear tree, or they have a maple tree, or something that's clogging the pipes, or something that's just taking the front of the building away. It's just a nuisance item, and it's.
Well, a lot of that is, I mean, we have a parking spot at the front of the building. Every day, the car is covered in sap. Every day. You can wash it every day. Next day, it'll be covered with sap.
Right. So, group, do we have a vote on this as far as our recommendation? To take it down, or to recommend not to taking it down? I mean, basically, the owner we can only recommend things, Steve. I mean, it's not,
Yeah,
know.
whereas on a residential property, there's different requirements.
Right.
All commercial properties have to come to you for
Right.
even one tree. And the vote would be either to recommend that the tree is tended to, as you put it, or recommend that the applicant can remove it.
Would that be binding?
From my knowledge of the shade tree ordinance, yes. But our attorney always tells me not to practice law, but I'll tell you yes.
Well, I'm just trying to work with the township to make the spot nicer. I mean, it's going to cost us a lot of money to take down the tree, landscape the space. If the township doesn't want us to take the tree, we'll leave it as it is, and we'll leave the space as it is. We're going to commit some significant dollars to the small space to make Lancaster look better. So,
If I may, and the board could recommend, I mean, if the applicant wishes to take it down, so we're all about canopy and cover and shade trees that he replace. You do one compensatory tree of a, large canopy tree or something along those lines.
wouldn't a large canopy tree interfere with the canopy tree right next to it?
Or they're the experts, but my point is they can request that another tree be installed of whatever species they feel.
Okay. Group?
Well, I do respect your views on this. I mean, me personally, I would prune any dead out. I would try to make this look presentable to your standards. I would like to still see it there because I think to me, it's like almost like a landmark, because I know, again, as soon as this was brought up, I knew exactly where this was. I don't know what business this is or what type of business it is, but I know the tree. That's my recommendation. But again, you have the right, to your opinion, what you would like to do, and I do respect that.
There is an appeal process if it came to.
Steve, is there an option where, if he were to remove the tree, that he could come back with like some sort of landscape plan and it's a little outside of our purvey, but just trying to be creative to meet his needs as well as ours?
From a landscaping plan with shrubbery, it really doesn't fall into your bailiwick.
Give him the opportunity to remove the tree, but also at the same token, improve the streetscape by cleaning up that area on both sides, which I think what everyone's trying to get at is creating a green, friendly, attractive environment there. So if you remove the tree and did something attractive in its absence, that may be something I would support.
My request would be that you make a recommendation that he does remove the tree or does not. And then he has the option, the applicant has the option to go to the board in an appeal. Let's say he does want to remove it and you say, we recommend no, he can go to the board. I respectfully request that to bring a landscaping plan back to the Shade Tree Commission is well out of your purview.
Right.
My opinion, with all respect.
I think We should vote on this pretty simply. If we agree to the trees removal, I think it would be fair if the applicant could replace with another tree, an ornamental, something that's going to enhance the building and the streetscape. And as the applicant asked, not to get that tall, but if our arborist could furnish him with a list of particular specimen trees that would fit this spot, that would be, aesthetically, it would enhance the streetscape and his building, but not get out of control not get as large as the spruce has in this case. So I think if we are in agreement, if we want to allow him to remove it, I think at least he should be able to put a new tree back in from a few trees that our arborist would recommend. Would that
We could
be-
easily have John Hosback contact the applicant and work that out with him.
Okay, so our vote is, the ayes are in favor of removal, and the nays are against removal. So in favor of letting him remove the tree with a proper, would you agree to putting in another tree?
Yeah, as long
into
as
that spot?
it fit the landscape, we'd
Right.
be okay with that.
Something that would be recommended by our arborist? Okay, so all in favor of the tree removal? I guess the ayes have it. So you can remove the tree, but the replacement has to be put in with a plant that's been recommended by our arborist.
Okay.
Something that's not going to get overpowering for a building, but something that is aesthetically going to be a pretty special plant. Not-
Just
something
just
of interest.
for my clarification, and I'm fine replacing the tree, but during my last time here, you had said there's nothing we can do about stopping you from removing the tree. You can either pay the fee to the Shade Tree Commission, or you can replace it. And I said, I'm happy to listen to the arborist on replacement trees, but why isn't that an option now?
Well, it was a little bit out of line, because it was in the commercial district that we're talking about here, we had to vote on all the trees. So, Steve, I don't know if that was exactly what we talked about then. What I was referring to is that if you didn't want to put a tree in here, you could replace it, in lieu of fees into the park or something like that.
Right.
But after we conversed a lot among the board about this with the people that were absent at the time, and being that it's a special tree, we all took note in it and went to actually look at the tree. And it's a pretty special tree. So our feelings were that another tree should really go back in its absence because of the fact that, we're kind of letting you do what you want to do, but we want to have a little bit back because of the significance of the tree to the streetscape of Route 30, the town, basically. Because it's a very interesting tree, and we hate to see it get taken out without something going back of interest in its space.
Okay.
Is your plan, if you remove this tree, to spend some money to dress up that area? Is that what you're contemplating now?
Yeah. I mean, we have not spent any real money doing any landscaping to that area. I mean, had some people come in, plant flowers and things like that, but that's put down mulch, and that's about the size of it. So if we did it, we'd commit to doing something nice there. I mean, we want the building to look good, just like the township wants the building and the landscape to look good.
Okay.
I mean, we wouldn't take it down and just put a field of mulch there. We don't want it to look like that either.
All right. Very
Okay,
good.
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next up is Androsium subdivision final plan, subdivided tract into 72 individual lots using density modification option permitted by Radnor Township zoning ordinance. The existing residential structures are to be maintained and made part of the lots. All new lots, with the exception of lot 4-11, will be developed with single-family residences. Oh, I'm sorry. 145, I apologize. 145 King of Prussia Road. Demolition of existing office research building, redevelopment of property with proposed office.
Hello, I'm Alex Tweedy with Nave Newell, the civil engineer for the project. If you're familiar with the property, this is the first application we just submitted for preliminary review, so we have not yet even received the formal review comments from the township engineer to date, but this is directly across from the high school on King of Prussia Road, directly adjacent to Radnor Racket Club. It's the original Wyeth Centecore building that is now vacant. The tenant has left the building, and Biomed Realty Trust, the property owner, has come in for a full redevelopment of the property to demolish all the existing buildings and construct an office campus on the property with associated parking. So,
What page are you on there?
this is the third page, 3.0. Or if you have the full set, it's, I believe, the fifth page, fifth or sixth page.
3.0? Okay, thank you.
So the setup of the property creates a inner ring building setback in the center with basically a 75-foot ring that's available for parking. So the redevelopment of the property consists of, it's 11 buildings, but it's some buildings are interconnected, so it's a cluster. It's 4 clusters of buildings, all isolated within the building setback, surrounded by a ring of parking, following the parking setbacks, and maintaining the 2 existing entrances at the south and north end of the property. The north end heads to the SEPTA station, directly between Radnor Racket and the property, and then the south end is maintaining the existing location of that entrance. We're eliminating a visitor parking lot. There was a small parking lot directly across from Raider Road, and creating just a full circulation loop around the property. The majority of the campus is being fully demolished with the existing buildings. There's 4 existing buildings on the property today. All 4 of the buildings are being taken down, and all the parking lots will be removed. And it's a full demolition of the entire campus and a full reconstruction of the entire campus.
Which one? 2.1.
Yeah, 2.1 and 2.2 are the existing feature/demolition plans for the property. As part of the redevelopment, there's also a requirement of the subdivision code to widen King of Prussia Road an additional lane, which is 12 feet of widening along the entire frontage of the property. By the nature, if you're familiar with that streetscape, the nature of the road today is the existing edge of King of Prussia Road and then a steep slope up into the campus, and the campus is somewhat hidden by the hills that are created by that topography. By the nature of the widening and the grading required for that, the majority of that hillside has to be cut back, and the majority of the trees along the streetscape that are being removed are a result of the excavation required to establish that additional lane on King of Prussia Road to meet this subdivision requirements.
Okay. Are you working with your landscape architect firm presently?
Yes. Yeah, our firm has an internal landscape architect. He's not here today, but our landscape department prepared this plan.
So what, on the campus, what areas did they decide that tree preservation is important?
By the nature of the development, the majority of the trees that are worthy of development are directly adjacent to King of Prussia Road, and unfortunately, with the grading required for the roadway, they're unable to be preserved.
100%.
100%.
So there is no tree preservation development here.
There's a couple trees on the property line in between the campus and the railroad that are up on the top of the hill that are being preserved as it was an evergreen buffer planted in between the campus and the railroad. Those are able to be preserved, but with the grading required for the redevelopment of the property, the majority of the campus has to be demolished and reconstructed. And the majority of the trees that are planted on the property are the parking lot trees from the original development, and some incidental buffer plantings that the property owner has planted to screen different mechanical units on the property, et cetera. The majority of the more mature trees are along the streetscape that unfortunately have to be demolished due to the widening of King of Prussia Road.
Have you developed a tree inventory for the property as far as what you have and what condition any of these?
Yeah, on C9.1 is the landscape plan. So the landscape requirements identify the tree replacement criteria with the ratios, the 1-to-1, the 3-to-1, and the 6-to-1 replacement criteria, and broke down all the categories of the trees. So similarly on the existing features plan that we were looking at, 2.1 and 2.2 catalogs all the trees and labels the size and species, and then the landscape plan identifies the replacement or compensatory tree requirements for the project. From a straight subdivision code requirement, there isn't a large number of trees required, but because of the demolition of the property, there's a large number of replacement trees required. So the concept of the plan was to try and establish buffers, even though they're not required, to create a streetscape along King of Prussia Road, and then establish something similar to a buffer scheme along the rear of the property between the campus and the railroad, and along the 476 ramp to supplement the existing slope in between the blue and the developed portion of the campus is already wooded, and we're proposing some additional buffer-type plantings along this area to further screen it in that area.
So what's the total number of trees proposed to be taken down on the site?
There's 194 trees to be removed and 305 replacement trees based on the ratios.
305?
Yes.
I mean, just by looking at this, there is a number of large heritage trees that seem to be outside of the setback of the right-of-way.
Right, but the grading supported by it pushes the grading in. Unfortunately, it's not flat directly adjacent to King of Prussia Road today. It slopes up quite steep. So when you have to cut that in, you basically have to regrade that whole slope, and you disturb all the root systems and in some cases, directly up to the tree required. So the grading associated with that.
All right, well, let's just take it out.
Are you looking at-
C2, existing.
Where do you see the heritages?
There's just a whole row of big trees along this area.
Okay.
That all have setbacks.
Right.
Where you at, Gus? 2.1. Yeah, you have some significant trees. This 72-inch sycamore on
Yeah, there's a-
C21.
Yeah, the largest tree on the property is the 72-inch sycamore here.
Right.
And then there's some 30 to 40-inch trees surrounding the visitor parking lot
Right.
along the frontage.
And you got a 48-inch maple. Further inland on C2 too, mid-span here. There's just a number of trees that are out of your right-of-way that seem like they could be preserved.
Well, they're outside the roadway right away, but they're inside. The property by the zoning standards to it is limited to get circulation around the property. The zoning code as it's written creates basically a ring around the building envelope. So the building envelope is basically a hole in the center of the site, which is the only place you can place the buildings. And then there's basically a 75-foot corridor surrounding that whole building envelope. So that's the only available place to create full circulation around the property to access it. So the trees that are outside the roadway setback for that right-of-way are inside the parking setback, and that's the only place to put a circulation drive surrounding the buildings. So they're required for demolition just because that's the only option we have for location of the driveways to support the project.
Couldn't one solution be to just reduce the building envelope?
This is the redevelopment proposed for the property, so.
So basically, you're just going to, all the trees are coming down.
Yeah, we explored some ability to put some additional walls along King of Prussia Road to reduce the grading impact. The problem was the height of the walls was so extreme, and the geogrid support behind the walls would have done just as much disturbance to the tree roots as the natural grading for it. So we explored alternative grading schemes that would work for the development, and unfortunately there was no ability to save any of the trees along the front of the site.
Mr. Tweedy, how high were the walls that you were looking at?
Some of them were upwards of 10 to 12 feet.
Did you look at some of the other alternates that don't, depending on your soils, I'm aware of, like Ready Rock, where it's just the mass of the unit that holds the wall?
Some of the
soil back?
trees, the root system and the canopy of the tree is almost right up against the roadway. So even regardless of tieback or no tieback, even just the disturbance of building a wall itself is almost too much disturbance to the tree. And unfortunately, if it was just the front of the tree, sometimes you can support disturbance on one side but not the other. But because of the orientation of the envelopes by the zoning code, there's disturbance on the uphill and downhill side. So we just felt there was too much disturbance in that critical root zone to support saving the trees.
So I understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish here, and I think on the surface, you've done a nice job of replanning the site, and you've incorporated green roofs, which is certainly not part of our input, but could you talk what that will be composed of, and that will help alleviate some of the concerns?
As far as the green roofs, you mean?
Yes. Just explain what will be in those. Just purely stormwater retention.
Well, I mean, it's there for all the benefits you get out of the green roof. This property has been under discussion with the township for a number of years, knowing that Senecor was leaving the property. We've been in discussions, I believe it's going on 2 to 2.5 years now, for how to redevelop this campus. As part of those discussions have been requested for bringing in systems such as green roofs to the property, et cetera. So this is the first pass at the review, and we don't know the exact placement of it relative to mechanical equipment or roof design for the building. They're still in the preliminary architectural stages. So we don't have a lot of specifics as to what is being proposed. We just wanted to acknowledge that we're thinking about doing a green roof and are willing to present that.
And the corridors between the buildings, what will those be composed of?
Right now, this is still just a preliminary hardscape package. What they envision the property to function as is there's a large elevation difference, almost 20 to 30 feet in between this entrance and this ring road with a large wall in between. So the main entrance to the property from the client's perspective and from the user's perspective is really in this rear corridor here. They'll drive up this entrance drive and then really kind of enter the campus by the time they get to the rear. here. So they view this as the major thoroughfare for access to the buildings from the entry points at the south end, and then from the SEPTA drive, this is kind of the major access point to the property there. So what they wanted to establish was kind of an outdoor space of hardscape, and then we've created planting beds in the middle, whether they're stormwater rain gardens or just landscape features, et cetera. The details at this stage obviously haven't been worked out, but we wanted this to be the major pedestrian plaza that kind of serves the campus and create an amenity space for the users of the campus.
Well, I know you've done a lot of planning and a lot of work to get to this point here with the township.
Mr. Chairman, just to give you a little background, so this is the Biomed Realty site, which was originally brought to the township as a transitory development. So now this is the applicant's actual submission of a by right plan based on their thought of it being a by right plan to the township. So that's why it's the first time you're seeing this.
Yeah.
Whereas over the last 2 years, you did not.
And it's going to be a significant, it's going to have significant, impact on the township and everyone that drives by it. So I'd like to take the opportunity to have our arborist really to go out there and review the site with their arborist and landscape architect to go over the number of trees and the condition of the trees that they have, and if there's any other options for the township in tree preservation on this site to see if there is something worthwhile that we could actually keep from it that would enhance the site and the streetscape at the same time.
Just for my own edification, so Mr. Tweedy, based on the grading, not just of King of Prussia Road, but what you're doing to the site, you're clearing the site?
Generally, for the most part. Yeah, I mean, I have the grading plans here. We can,
What I'm getting at is, unless there's a grade change, there may not be an option necessarily for preservation other than what you have saved.
yeah, I mean, with the needs to grade the property to make the new buildings function and limited by the building location and the parking location from the zoning setbacks of the property, we're pretty much required to regrade the entire property.
I mean, if you were to go out and say that this 72-inch sycamore is so significant as a heritage tree, that there may be some way, other than how this plan is proposed here, to preserve that tree, is that an option to?
Absolutely. Your recommendation here tonight is going to go to the Planning Commission because this applicant is on the Planning Commission for October 6th. So any recommendations that you have, and then it will be up to the applicant to put forth if it is feasible for them to do that or not, other than regrading the whole site at a different level. And they could say, there's only one way to do that.
Right.
Your recommendation, whatever that may be, will go to Planning Commission.
Yeah, just for reference, the 72-inch sycamore tree is approximately here, which is directly on the border of the building envelope and the parking envelope. So this ring road of parking, which offers the circulation around the building, is generally cutting right through the path of that sycamore tree. We've explored that. The area we think that there's probably the best chance and best opportunity for some preservation is the oak trees in the vicinity of the visitor parking lot, which are generally in this area. But like we said, there's grading from the road widening on the downhill side and grading from the new parking lot on the north side. So we'd be open to discussions with the township arborist on some recommendations or some thoughts on maybe how to create an area that preserves that corridor to save some of those trees. And there are some of the main streetscapes trees you see as you go down King of Prussia Road, so there'd be some benefit to it. But we reviewed it with some different options, and with what we came up with the requirements to build walls and or grade in different options, we weren't able to come up with a plan that we felt was viable to save the trees.
What's the grade change in the location of the 72-inch?
We're filling like 8 feet, I believe. Well, it's probably like 5 feet.
So even if,
5 feet.
and I'm just saying for conjecture, even if the building shifted and the parking lot shifted, there's 5 feet of fill
Yeah,
in
it's
that
still a
area.
substantial amount of grading in that area.
recognizing what you need to, the amount of grading that needs to take place to build a footprint of these sizes, I think anything that you could do to preserve what little is able to be preserved would be interesting. And a specific example that to point to would be what Simon Properties did at their outlet center they developed in Limerick.
Okay.
They have areas of areas that they did not disturb at all, which they call preservation areas within the confines of the existing outlet center. So,
Right, the streams that meander
are
through
you
the
familiar
site,
with
yes.
what I'm referring to?
Yes.
So if we could incorporate some of that type of concept into this plan, that could be interesting. If the quality of the trees are such that they are worth saving.
Right. And we're happy to review the site, and our landscape designer can visit the site with any township representatives who would like to review any of these areas and offer some suggestions. We're willing to discuss those options.
As always, as we campaign for canopy, being a champion of the cause here, if there's any availability in your design to preserve anything on the site, it would be of value to the township here, because it's going to be high focus, and the amount of people that pass it every day, the whole township is going to pass by here. So
Right.
anything that can be preserved or kept is going to benefit the developer, the township, and the community. So if we could vote on that, I'd like to see, I'd recommend our township to review these plans with their engineers, to go over it and come back to us if there is a possibility of any tree preservation to take place on the site, if that's possible. Come back to us with any kind of revisions in order to try to save some canopy on this site.
Right, yeah, and as we said, we haven't even received the review yet, and we're at the Planning Commission in the next week or two. So we'll continue those discussions with staff and with the Planning Commission.
Okay, all in favor of having the applicant come back after some review work is done? All in favor?
But I think we should specify that the cluster of oaks should be of special interest to the arborists. Will that be in the minutes? Excuse me. Cluster of oaks, will that be in there specifically to highlight?
We'll make sure whatever specifics you have, with John Hosbach meeting with the applicant, and if you wish to have that in the notes, and that will go to Planning Commission.
Right, so those.
And you specifically mean the ones near the visitor parking lot in this area?
Yeah, which you said you thought there was some possibility that they could.
Yeah, those are the areas with the least amount of grading requirements and the least impact, but they are still relatively close to the existing cartway of King of Prussia Road and are impacted, but that's probably the best chance we have to save some features if we explore some options.
Sycamore is on C21.
Oh, CT1. Okay. Yep. And that's taking,
You know, the Sycamore is directly adjacent to the existing stormwater basin. It's actually built almost on the berm of the existing basin.
you still wanted to look at that, the 72-inch Sycamore too, John?
Well, it's the building's on top of it, so.
Okay.
All right. So, all in favor, please, we'll come back. Ayes have it, so we'll see you again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is Androsian subdivision, subdivided tract, 72 individual lots using density modifications option permitted by Radnor Township zoning ordinance.
Good evening. I'm John Snyder from Saul Ewing and represent the applicant. I have with me Lisa Thomas from Glock and Thomas Panzak and Dave Fiorello from Momini and Associates, as well as Eddie Scott, the principal. This is actually our third visit to you. This is on final plan approval now. We had discussed earlier at the preliminary plan stage twice the buffers, which, let me get the pointer so I can stay near the mic. the rye field buffer in this area, the buffers along Newtown Road and Newtown Private Road, and a little bit of buffer in here. And then we talked about, and at those point in time, when we were with you, any of those buffers are set by the commissioners. And since this is a density modification plan, we had initially proposed a deciduous tree buffer like the natural forest that was out there. We were asked to include a significant amount of evergreen interspersed in it, so the buffer as it finally evolved and is back to you is probably a little bit more than twice the plantings and has evergreens interspersed in it. The buffering through the woods on Newtown Road was all hollies, evergreens that were understory. We've added additional evergreens on the development side of it in the form of spruces. And on the Newtown Private Road side, it was an existing forest that was supposed to have infill plantings as they are required as reforestation program, instead of plant this tree here, plant this tree there on some planting plan. And so the amount of trees that were shown as potential infill was increased, and notes were put on the plan as to the type of form of planting, with the township arborist, that we would be going out and planting infill plantings there. With respect to street tree planting, while street tree planting was proposed along what's called the Village Road, and street tree planting is proposed to fill in the alley of trees that's along that main driveway. The idea of street tree planting through that open area there, when we were with you, the discussion was that would, in essence, be held in abeyance until the development matured or at least got completed, so that we could see what would be effective with respect to vistas and protecting the openness out there. And that's likely to be 5 to 8 years down the road when we're out in that area. So what we've done is gone through the calculations of what the common improvements will remove. If you remember, these are lots that are not being sold with houses, so each one will have its own grading and tree removal plan depending upon the nature of that lot. But in essence, the basic wooded areas are being avoided. So I'm going to let Lisa Thomas come up and go through what she did with the removals and so forth, and tell you a couple of things that we've done in the interim to even reduce the tree removal.
Good evening. I trust, we revised our plan. I trust you have the most recent plan in front of you. And it's dated the 17th. Okay, great, good. At the time we made our initial submission, all of the trees to be removed had not been surveyed. So we wanted to take some more time and get an updated plan to you. And that's why we have the new plan in front of you. As you recall, and as John said, we're viewing this as a forest mitigation plan as we work through this process. Since I last saw you, we've added 295 trees to the plan. So as John said, it's a significant increase. We are proposing to remove 209 trees. And the areas of removal include going from east to west around the bulb of this cul-de-sac. And at this point, we're also exploring right here the ability not to impact that area as much. We're looking at flipping the cul-de-sac over and getting the bulb out of the hedgerow. So I believe we can save around 13 additional trees in this area. We're studying it a little closer and reviewing the grading. And in fact, we're out there this evening looking at it before we came. So we're hoping to save some trees in this area. Trees are coming out at the entrance on Newtown Road, near the water tower. They're coming out as we go to the Abrams Lane entrance. Some trees are coming out at that corner right there. There's a stormwater management area in this spot where some trees are coming out. Couple of trees along this road here. Some, as few as possible, but several trees along this driveway related to the road. If you go to Road H, there's a bulb pushing into the trees in this area, and we think we can push that bulb out of those trees, and we're working to do that. So we think there's about 4 trees that we can save in this area. Other areas where trees are being removed is the entrance, the western entrance on Newtown Road. We've pushed into some of the areas with stormwater management basins in several places. So just to give you a general idea where the trees are coming out, it's not mass removal. It's a couple trees here, a couple trees there. So it is a total of 209 trees to be removed. As we previously discussed at another meeting, because of the forest mitigation plan, it was suggested that we deal with the tree removal in an inch-to-inch basis, because we have all different sizes of trees. They range from 5 feet up to 2.5-inch caliper. So what we've done on our plan, on the cover sheet, is we've shown you how many trees are being removed, and then we've converted the replacement trees, which would be, under normal circumstances, 411 replacement trees, to inches. So under replacement trees required, there's 822 inches that would need to be replaced. So we simply took 411, multiplied it by 2 inches, and that's how we got to the 822. So what we're doing is we're providing a total of 448 trees on the site, and that adds up to 675.5 inches. There's another 146.5 inches left to be provided, and we're holding that aside to use as the project moves forward and we review the needs for trees along the streets. So that's a summary of where we're at and what we've done. And I wanted to see if anybody had any questions about the numbers or where we're planting. I think John pretty much explained all that.
Lisa, on your replacements, how did they come up with the numbers of how to dictate between the sizes of trees? How was that kind of decided on?
Can you tell me where on the chart you're looking at?
Tree replacement notes, total deciduous trees provided, LP1.
I'm trying to see where you're at. Number 1, should any trees be removed?
It's under tree replacement notes.
Wait a minute. Third from the bottom, 1, 2, 3. Yep, got it. Okay. So those trees, thank you. Those trees are all shown on the drawings.
Okay.
So that's how it's a balance. We're working through the different sizes of trees, and they're all on the drawings, and that's how we counted them up. And then what we did was we converted them into inches.
Right. Was there a specific, a formula used to say how many smaller trees we would need as comparison to how many bigger trees we
Well,
would need?
it had to do with where they're located.
Okay.
So if you look over at the Rye Field buffer, this area, it's a combination of all those sizes of trees to have the forest mitigation plan. So we've got a range of trees. We're not putting in all one size of trees because we want it to look like a hedgerow. Because of the hedgerows on the property, we want to sort of reforest in a hedgerow format along the Rye Field. So that's where the mix is. And then the other mix is along Newtown, the private Newtown Road. Within this hedgerow, we were inserting smaller trees.
So the areas of the heaviest reforested areas or replanting areas with these compensatory plantings are going to be on the upper Rye Field.
Right through in here.
And then along Newtown Road.
infilling amongst the
Infilling.
existing, yes. And then the balance of the trees are street trees along the village, in the village area. There's sidewalks there also. This is
Okay.
more of a traditional neighborhood. And then throughout this deciduous hedgerow along Newtown Road, there was a request for the evergreen trees to go in there. And then also, again, more street trees along Road C. So most of the forest mitigation is taking place, to summarize, along the Newtown private road and in the Ryefield area.
That's
Jim,
for.
can I just back up a little bit to our last meeting? Now, I know I remember this, that when we talked about tree removal, when we were originally talking about the planning of the buffer and everything, you guys said you weren't removing any trees. Now, I'm all of a sudden hearing about tree removal. But I remember clearly, and I thought it was incredulous that that we
Well,
could do this and not remove trees.
Sure, I understand what you're saying. Part of it is when you get into the engineering, you end up pushing, when we were here, we didn't understand the full impact of our stormwater management requirement. And as I started talking through this, I noted to you that we have re-reviewed 2 areas specifically where we think that we can limit the removal. We can go back and save trees by redesigning several areas to
Right, but
impact
I just
that.
want you to understand, this is all new to us.
I agree.
Okay, because we're under the
I'm fine with
impression
that. I
that no
understand that.
trees were being removed, so.
Right. Well,
You're kind of going on like, we're just negotiating the number or the numbers, but we hadn't had any pre-planning on.
I'm not trying
any
to
removal.
negotiate anything. I'm just
No.
presenting the information, the number removed.
No, as far as our
telling you-
understanding, just
Yeah,
talking back
right,
and
yeah,
forth.
yeah.
This is new to us. You guys agree? Last time there was no trees being removed, and that didn't make sense to me, but I
Well,
had no
we
reason
did
to
tell
question
you,
that.
we did tell you that there would be tree removal on the lots, and that would be handled.
lots, right.
Yes,
But
I
this
want to
is
make sure
other
that we
than
all understand that. But and I think it's understood, because we did show you where the entries were, that there would be tree removal related to entries, because we are going through those areas. So what we've done is we've come and we've brought before you very clearly on these plans where the trees are being removed and how we're replacing it in the vein of which we've been discussing. So again, we're providing 448 new trees on the site, and we're still have additional trees that we're holding that we aren't providing, but we will provide as the lots are developed, and we'll provide them in relationship to the street tree planting to preserve the open views. So we've got all the numbers here. We talked about, I'm sure you recall, about doing it on an inch-to-inch basis because of the specialness of this plan. For a site this size and the amount of work that's going on, you can see, I wanted to bring a rendering so you could see very clearly that most of the houses, all but a few, are out in the open, and the development is pretty much, I would say, 95% in open fields, and that was intentional with the design. Stormwater management is always a surprising task when you go to start to engineer something. It tends to be larger than one would anticipate.
Just a question to the group here. What are your thoughts? I notice a lot of the trees here are inch to inch and a half selections. I understand some of the reasoning behind it for different sizes, but I mean, are we okay with that?
Well, there's half inch here, too.
If I might refresh the commission's memory, early on when the applicant came in with the original reforestation plan, and John Hosbach met with the applicant's landscape architect, I was at one of those meetings myself. So actually, John's recommendation for the Ryefield buffer planning was to use more whips. He felt that there was going to be a much better survival rate over the larger, some of the larger diameter trees. So that's where that came from our end, if you will. And then the subsequent plan doubled the amount of trees that are in there. But the whips and small diameter trees was our arborist recommendation to the applicant.
Okay.
The plantings along the Ryefield and along the Newtown private road are going to look much more naturalized instead of all one size on the property.
you see the number of trees removed on this one, on LP1?
The number of trees to be removed.
Is that listed?
Oh, you know what? I added it up. I'm sorry. If you look under the second bold, it says total deciduous and trees being removed. It's 209. And please, we did find a typo there that needs to be fixed. Under the 19 to 29 inch DBH, it says 447. It's 47. So that was a drafting error. So the total being removed is 209. As you can see, the majority of the trees being removed are between 6-inch and 18-inch.
At least,
37 heritage trees.
right.
That's all new.
Of the 209, there's a bunch that are of poor and dead conditions. So you'd be backing out those out of the 209. So 31 of the 209 are poor and dead. So there's 178 live trees being removed on the site.
Steve, Jack was making a point about, at that meeting, we weren't really talking about compensatory trees. They were just putting out the issue of reforestation management, where the notion of the smaller trees came to light as a reforestation management implementation program.
The bulk of that meeting was about the Ryefield buffer.
Right.
Subsequent to that, so the area along Newtown Road was requested, I can't remember if it was Planning Commission or whatever, that that area be beefed up also as an additional visual buffer at that front of the project. And as the landscape architect stated, the bulk of the others are the actual entrances to the project. It's not just the entrance, there's PennDOT requirements on length and width that really aren't negotiable for some of them that may impact other trees. So this plan as it is now, I know it's been before the township for quite some time. So they've received preliminary plan approval from the Board of Commissioners. They are now into their final approval stage. So it's back to this commission. On the 6th, it's the Planning Commission, and depending on what happens there, moves forward to the board. So what you see from a road standpoint, that is preliminary plan approval. That's pretty much the crux of the development as you see it.
Right. What Jack was saying is that when the reforestation management program was initiated, it wasn't to provide for compensatory tree replacements because we didn't have any removals in front of us at that point.
If I may, when we came, John Hosbach told you all, this is my recollection, and I don't know if it's in the minutes or not, but that we would be providing compensatory trees and we would be using this, and it would all be on an inch-to-inch basis because of these types of trees that we were using. So this was an overall concept, and we hadn't gotten to the point where we had done full engineering to understand where trees are being removed. So the inch-to-inch came from John, not from me, in terms of how to calculate the plans.
So he was readying us for this meeting as far as, he was getting us ready for the compensatory
Yes,
inches
and this
to
was
be-
at the very first meeting we had. He had mentioned that. That's why we looked at it this way. I've had a conversation with him about the plan. I asked him a couple of questions a week or two ago, maybe about a week, just to clarify a couple things. And he seemed to be okay I told him we were resubmitting, so I assume he has a set of plans. It's unfortunate he's not here to talk us through it.
Yeah, if I can, one of the things that you may be missing in this is that, for example, the whips. The whips are being treated as a half-inch tree for compensatory planting, not as a compensatory tree. So it takes 4 whips to get a compensatory tree. That's why we did it inch to inch, so that we could have the varying sizes that your arborist wanted and still get to a reasonable compensatory number based upon the types of trees that we're planting.
And the evergreens that you have here aren't part of the buffer, they're part of our compensatory trees, right?
Yes, they are, because they were specifically requested beyond what was here by the township.
Okay.
So what would be the count of, just, in terms of our ordinance, what would be the count of replacement trees needed?
You'll find that underneath the third bold line, below the numbers, it says replacement trees required, and it's 411.
Okay, and when you transfer it to these inches, how many trees is that going to be? Is that reduce the number of trees?
No. I'm counting at 448 trees we're providing.
Yeah, on a tree-to-tree basis, we would be providing enough, but because we've converted it to inches because of some of the smaller sizes, we will still owe you trees. That's why we did it inch to inch, so that you were getting, in essence, equivalent tree numbers.
And to move on to that, too, to take what John said, is we're showing 448 trees on the plan. If you look under total DBH provided, this is the very bottom, additional DBH required, we're required to provide another 146.5 inches, which equals 59 more trees. So it would be the 148 plus another 59 trees if it's at 2-inch caliper. So it is a significant amount over what's required in terms of tree to tree.
And then as we move that cul-de-sac, those 2 cul-de-sacs, we would reduce the number of trees taken by probably around 17, so that there would be an inch-by-inch adjustment to that, to what we still owe you as that revision to the plan is done. So the final tree replacement notes will be based upon those actual revisions in the plan.
I think we're working off of different plans because the figures that you're quoting are slightly different than what we have in front of us. If you want to take a look at this
Right,
plan.
I get that. We found some typos
Uh,
on the plan. So I'm quoting the updated numbers, which I
Okay.
apologize about. That's why I told you about the 447. It's really 47, so I apologize. So the total trees that we're showing is the 448 plus the additional 59 trees would be 507 trees that would be replaced. However, as you can see, we're very focused on trying to minimize the removal of trees, and to the fact that we've already figured out we can save 17 more trees. And I think you'll see us doing that throughout the whole process. If we can save, we want to save. That's the whole point. The client's incredibly sensitive about this property and about his landscape and what he's trying to achieve.
Yeah, at the preliminary plan stage, even though the original proposal was for a 20-foot wide road as Road C coming in, because of that alley of trees, we requested and obtained approval of a waiver from the Board of Commissioners to take it down to 18 feet with no parking on either side, so that we could avoid removing more trees along that alley. We're very sensitive to trying to preserve what's out there. Yeah, and the one thing that Lisa didn't mention, where we end up removing some trees here and there, is sewer lines, which have to run along the stream valleys. So when we said we weren't removing trees, we knew that there would be some things like that as you had to do them. I think we're both surprised it added up to as many as it did, but that's because it's pretty dense out there. We haven't increased areas of disturbance, we've reduced areas of disturbance.
We have any more questions, board? Gus? So we vote on this approval, yea or nay, as far as how it goes with these, with the replacement formula, as it is with the forest mitigation plan with the different sizes to accumulate inch by inch instead of our 2 to 2.5 inch requirement. Okay.
So on the smaller trees, how will you avoid the deer from destroying the smaller caliper trees?
So we'll end up using a guard around it, an open guard for the trunk so that they don't get deer rubbed and pushed around. And I just want to check, I'm pretty sure we have a detail on our plans for that. Let's see what page it's on. So if you go to LP 1H, you can see the details with the tree guards. The first detail is the seedling detail, and it's a plastic mesh. The black one that's open, that can. It's open though. It's almost like it's not like a pipe, a corrugated pipe. It's open because you want to get air on the trunk, and it can stay up all year long. You don't have to go and take it off, and it kind of will open with the tree. It'll open up a little bit, and we have that on the large trees also.
And with respect to your vote for approval, we'd ask that you then do it as adjusted when the final plan is revised for the moving of cul-de-sac. So adjusted for any trees that get saved by adjusting the street locations.
Just in these, because this project is going to take quite some time to come, is there notes on the care of these trees that are to be put out into this, like the rye field and these other buffer areas, as far as aftercare years down the road, or the possibility of the guaranteeing if these small whips, their mortality rate is generally pretty high as they go in. So, this project's going to be going on and on as things will die. What will be the life cycle of the plant guarantee and its maintenance as the project continues?
I think that's a great idea. That would really slow this down a bit, I think, to put some maintenance and care notes on here. And even potentially the arborist could inspect it to take a look at it. I think that would really help forward that, really
Well, yeah,
solidify the concept.
because these areas that are being planted are so far-reaching as far as access due to, water and being able to be cared for, we should have some instructions set in place so that we know that they are being watered, maintained, and being accounted for periodically, whether it's every 6 months or every year, so that as these trees, we're going to lose some trees out there due to the deer, due to their proximity so far away from being cared for, being in the woods, that we can be assured that as this project continues, 5, 6 years down the road, that these plants are being replaced as they die for that period of time,
We can put notes together to relate to that.
and that they're being maintained and looked after by someone that would be noted to the township.
It would be the, I guess, the HOA.
Yep.
Right. It
Right,
could be
so
in their
they-
it could be written into the bylaws.
Well, the HOA could inspect it and then provide something to the township showing that they did inspect it.
Annually,
Yep, we can do that, not a problem.
and that the beginning care be written into it, that they do need to be attended to and watered, and if there are dead trees that will die, that they be replaced up to a certain time, maybe to the end of the construction of this.
Even though it's phased, they're really going to be on the hook throughout the construction period, because if they're in phase 3 and we're going to inspect that and there's damage or lost trees in phase 2, by all means, we would let the construction superintendent know that there's additional trees that have to be replaced. Because eventually, the roads are going to be dedicated to the township, so that there's going to be numerous inspections and a final deed of dedication. And when that occurs, we go through the whole development with a fine-tooth comb, what needs to be repaired, what needs to be fixed, on all levels.
So maybe what should occur would be to leave the approved numbers kind of in place through the final dedication of the project to the town. At that point, relieve the applicant of any further warranty issues, because I think somebody referenced 5 to 8 years. So I think if they've been maintaining it for virtually the next decade, at that point, once the project's dedicated and they're done, relieve them of all future restrictions subject to whatever the HOA would want to maintain for their own benefit.
What will happen by the MPC when the deed of dedication occurs, there's still going to be a period of time that the applicant is guaranteeing the work, whether it be the roads, the sewers, storm sewer. So I think you're guaranteed that virtually through the construction period, and at least it's either 12 or 18 months beyond, the applicant will have to take care of anything that occurs. So your vote would be yay or nay on, or approve or not approve the final plan submission as shown, noting that cul-de-sacs may be moved to save more trees. I just don't want to see the applicant come back to tell you, we moved the cul-de-sac and we're saving 17 trees, because we know that's a good thing. But there is one thing, there's a resident that would like to have public comment before you vote, when you see fit.
I have another question about the additional DBH. Why are we holding off on that? There's not enough room for those plantings, or?
No. Those trees would have been put along Road C or D. If you remember, we talked about the fact that because of the open vistas here,
Right.
we wanted to be able to place them as we got into phase 4, which is that area. That's where we expect those additional trees to go. It may well be more than that, but I mean,
All
what
right.
I'm saying is that.
Because I got the impression you wanted to use those for the actual plots themselves, where
No.
we, okay.
No,
Okay.
no. Each homeowner will be doing their own
Okay.
planting. We're
All right.
not.
So that's
no,
just
no.
other areas
They're
where
on their
you,
own.
construction that you're not sure what you can put in there.
It may be that we put a tree some really important place that looks good.
Right.
That actually is not in a right-of-way or an open space thing and is on a lot, but that's what we talked about when we get to phase 4.
Okay. We have, okay. Go ahead then, before our vote here.
Thank you. Leslie Morgan, 12 Farm Road. And thank you to the applicant. It's coming alive. Just a few comments that I'd like you to consider before you vote, since the taxpayers have subsidized this project to a record-breaking amount. And I don't like to sound like a broken record, but I don't mind sounding like a broken record either, and Randy knows that. So I'm glad that they doubled the amount of plantings along the Rye Field because, as you know, the judge or the hearing officer, Bola, wanted this to be taken into considerable purview from the point of view of the commuters, whether they be pedestrians or cars, because it slopes up, and they didn't want to see the houses, and that's why we were, we got the taxpayers to pony up their own money. So just to give you a reference point, I know you guys know a lot more than me, but I've done a lot of research on this. Reforestation along a ridge like that with, if I'm wrong by a few trees, did you say 248?
In that area?
Okay, in that area.
No, that was a question.
In the
Total.
Ryfield.
There's
248 total, not in that area, I don't believe.
What is the current number of plantings in the Ryfield Ridge? I call it the Ridge. I thought she gave a number. I'm sorry. Okay, if you could find that. Yeah, can you find that?
224?
Okay, so it was increased by 100 roundabout from the last time that I came to you. And that's a good start. I don't think we're there. And there's a few reasons. Just as a quick example, across the street on another piece that we're purchasing in the collection of purchases, we are reforesting an area that's already forested that you probably know when you drive up and down, and it's along the stream. And what the township, this is on township money again, it's not included in this, they're going to plant a 100-foot buffer, 1,500 trees. I'm going to repeat that. This is a 100-foot buffer. They're going to replant a 100-foot buffer on it's not the quarry, what's the third parcel down here called, you guys? Wheeler, thank you. They're going to plant a 100-foot buffer, or they plan to, with some grants, Aqua, township money, 1,500 trees. I don't know the calipers. I don't know the types. It's already heavily forested, as you know, and I know. We drive there. So 228 trees isn't really, I don't think, enough protection yet. I know at the Planning Commission, just to give you what I heard last time, was from everybody. They wanted more protection, and they wanted definitely pine trees, so that during the winter months, there was still protection. And I think that's very important. That's really the only thing that I can comment on. I just want to go through my notes. This is the area that I think that still needs work, and to protect our money. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, back to our vote here in regard to the replacement trees on this plan. Yay vote is to go ahead. All in favor?
It's Lisa, correct? Are you familiar with what is the buffer that she was referring to across the street?
I am not. I'm not sure how long it is. I don't know what the existing conditions are. I don't know what sizes she's talking about. I have no information on that.
I think it's
I can't comment on that.
Is it a riparian buffer they're working on along the stream bank there, where they're putting in 15?
Executive summary number 3 of the Adrossen that the chairman of the Board of Commissioners signed and was part of the referendum vote. It is on your website, on the Radnor Township website, and it is number 3, called Reforestation and Wetland Restoration. And it talks at length about it, and it says the planting of 1,500 trees in a 100-foot buffer. And I don't know the design of it yet, but it does talk about where some of the money will come from. I just thought it was a great illustration of what they call reforestation in a letter to the taxpayers.
Would you be open to including some evergreen?
We do have
in the bu-
evergreen trees.
Yeah,
in the buffer.
actually,
We did include evergreen. In fact, we have,
the township had asked that, as part of the buffer, it's exactly as Mr. Snyder said, it was all deciduous trees to follow to the letter of the law, the southeastern Pennsylvania forest, whatever that may be. So at the township's request, aside from putting additional trees in, they added the conifers to give that buffer through the winter, the visual break through the winter.
so we have 26 evergreen trees. Nobody wanted a wall. They wanted interspersed evergreens.
Isn't the buffer, isn't that under another commission's purview, though, the regulation of the buffer?
Not this buffer, no.
This buffer is under the purview of the Board of Commissioners.
Right.
And in the preliminary approval, at the time of preliminary approval, they had this landscaping plan for the buffer and approved it. That was one of the conditions of preliminary approval, was that we revised the buffer as shown on the plans you now have.
Since you haven't gotten to the point where you could estimate a finished floor elevation for the homes that would line the ridge line, could you estimate what the elevation of maybe the roadway would be relative to the...
What we have as a condition with the Board of Commissioners is on 4 of the lots, the last 4 of the lots, we are providing them with sections that will look up through the landscaping buffer. We're doing it at various years of growth because while we're planning the buffer as a part of Phase 1, those houses are a down-the-road phase, either the second or third phase that we would develop. But the condition of the conditional use was that the location of the houses on those lots would be adjusted by the Board of Commissioners at that time. And so we're providing them with cross-sections so that they can see what it would be. There was never a condition that those houses not be seen. There was a condition that there be screening of them, but not that they would not be seen. So the idea is what will be seen, what will it look like as you look up the hill through the woods at houses. And so what we expect in the final plan is we will probably have some adjusted lot envelopes on those 4 so that maybe we couldn't build a house as far forward as you might on another lot to do that. But those are all in the purview of the Board of Commissioners and were a part of the preliminary plan and will be addressed in the final plan, as this buffer was.
Thank you.
Let's try to understand the issue, right? Yeah. We're not making any decision.
What I can see on those sections, E and B, which I believe, if you could point out, I just want to make note of this and see if I'm correct. On those, can we call them, what will we call them? These sections, these blocks, parcels? Do you want to call them, or?
It's sheets, those are the sheet numbers.
Right, right. From what I see on E and B, that, I believe, is the buffer you're concerned about. If they can show you, if you could show Lisa E and B.
The Ryefield buffer.
Okay, right, but I mean, it's what we're looking at here. I believe it's E and B. From what I can see, from what I was quickly looking, there's more deciduous trees there versus evergreen. Substantially, I believe, more quantity.
Yes, that's correct. And that was the discussion with the board, that there would be some evergreens to help at the early stages, but
Right.
that generally the woods would be a deciduous woods like the rest of the site.
Right.
And so those evergreens were interspersed. There was a discussion that wasn't intended to be a wall of evergreens along the road or anything like that. It was to provide some breakup and screening in the winter. And as you see on sheet B, it's thinner as you get toward Newtown Road because that is well over the hill and on the downside of the hill. But it's still a connection of that woods to the other woods. The dense portion of what we're planning is as you come over the ridge and are on the same side of the ridge as the road.
In what time frame would these homes be constructed relative to the time that the buffer would be installed?
If the township acquires the Ryefield, which we expect it to do this December, that would put the acquisition of the Ryefield and the 100-foot buffer in Phase 1. That, the earliest that road would be put in and those 8 houses would be either the second or third acquisition, so it would be, in essence, somewheres in the 2 to 3 or 4 year afterwards range. But that was what we agreed to, is that when they buy the Ryefield, we would put the buffer in at that same time.
And I think the question that we were discussing here was that it appears the homes really rest on the peak of the ridge. So as the concern that I believe that the resident had raised was that you've got a topo line at the street level of approximately 280 rising to the topo line on top of the hill of around 340. So I don't know if it's something that you could demonstrate, and I know that the approval was not based on screening the homes from the street, but I think the concern of the board is, you know, how prominent will the homes be relative to the buffer?
And that's the issue that, well, first of all, we've agreed to shrink the allowed height of the building to 35 feet from the 42, which would be otherwise permitted in this district. One of the conditions of the conditional use, as well as then the preliminary plan, was that the Board of Commissioners would have the ability to set or restrict where the houses could be placed on those lots. The lots didn't have to be changed, so it's with it what the building envelope would look like on those lots. And because of that, what we're going through under the preliminary plan requirement is that we provide sections, including the screening heights, and we'll show them as they would grow through at least 2 time periods, if not 3 time periods. So what amount of that building would be, that building envelope would be screened. But these are all individual homes. They hire their own architect, they build their own home, they're not tract homes. So what it would look like on any individual lot, I couldn't tell you any better than you could tell me. So But what we are providing is that screen that will eventually be established there as a woods with some evergreens in it to help break it up at the start. That was always the requirement.
Would there be any benefit to beefing that up a little bit more? And changing out some of those?
That, the
Or
same
somewhere-
request was made in front of the Board of Commissioners when they voted on it. The commissioners who set the screen, it's their purview under the zoning ordinance. It's a plan as approved by the Board of Commissioners. They specifically approved this plan. It was this landscaping plan with these plan numbers that was approved by the board as the preliminary plan. So what I'm saying is, I think that the board that has the jurisdiction over it has said, this is good.
Right.
This
With
commission.
the same request that was made at the commissioners' meeting.
So what I would, assuming you're going to vote on this, you always have the option to make a recommendation, right? And the planning commission is going to see that, and ultimately the board will see that. But Mr. Snyder's correct on what you see in front of you. But that doesn't stop you from making a recommendation one way or the other. We'd like to see, whether it be as general as additional trees or something along the lines as the chair said. But you can attach that to your recommendation for approval.
Lisa, just on the evergreen selections, at least, if we could go over those on this LP1B, on the evergreen selections that you have here. I'd like to see you get away from Leyland cypresses, since we had such a hard time this winter with them falling apart and dying. And this white spruce actually becomes a pretty airy spruce, not as dramatic as a screen plant as a Norway spruce would be. So if you could substitute that Leyland, which is very ineffective, it's really a 10-year plant. And I would say, Gus, we have a Norway spruce.
Norway spruce.
I would like to see that put in as a better screening plant than either of those two would be.
I agree.
Or if,
Any other types that you would prefer
well,
us to use?
or a Western arborvitae.
Okay.
Yeah, the Thuya nigra would be a better suggestion than that Leyland cypress.
Do you think, I'm curious about your thoughts about deer with the Western Arb.
No, they are
That-
deer.
okay, good.
That particular variety is
Okay.
deer resistant, so I think we've had good luck with them on a lot of sites without any problem.
Is there a third that you'd like to recommend?
Have a cryptomeria?
If they could put some cryptomeria in, the growth rate would be very good too, so.
Okay, that sounds great.
Those three, and I'm looking for the second piece of this buffer planting plant schedule.
If you look on the landscape plan, you can see all the other, on B and E, you can see the plant
E.
list. LP1B and LP1E, the plant list at the bottom,
Right.
shows you everything that's on those sheets, and that would be what the deciduous plants
Right.
are.
And the same thing hold out for the evergreens on this LP1E,
Yep.
where you have specified the Leyland cypress. I would replace that.
So we'll work our way all the way through the plans for any of the Leylands or the white spruces and just replace them all.
Yeah, I would take them
Yep,
out as
no problem.
not being very effective screen plants at all. Randy, your thoughts on that?
So the last 3 homes that are down the hill don't have any evergreens in front of them. All the other homes, which are in a different location, different position on the topography, have the evergreen.
And the reason for
trees.
not having any evergreens closer to Newtown Road is because the houses sit
The houses are way
lower.
down, they sit way down the hill. So you're driving down your driveway to your house.
And the crest of the hill is west of the road.
It's like right here. And everything slopes down. So it's a whole different feel. Your view is behind you, in this case, and in the other area, you're kind of, it's more of a up and out in the front.
So the numbers and the placing of the trees has pretty much been set forth already by the Board of Commissioners here, Steve, so that
Right, so
that plan has already been voted on.
Mr. Snyder was correct in that the Board of Commissioners did approve this from a preliminary plan standpoint. They are now in their final plan. They're looking for final plan approval. They're going through you, Planning Commission, and back to the board. If there are some suggestions you have, feel free to, I'm not putting, recommend approval with the following recommendations, or, that's one option you have. So the landscape architect's already said she's going to wipe out the 2 trees that you did not like throughout the project and replace it with the 3 that you required. So, but if there's, if you wanted to say, we'd like to see more, you can do that. But that's how you would, you would recommend approval or denial with whatever condition, if you have a condition.
Recognizing that our arborist did make the recommendation to use the smaller caliper trees, and that there is 3+ years before this phase gets developed. And we would have, you had mentioned that the mortality rate of the smaller trees would be higher. Would you be opposed to also including some larger caliper trees in this area, contrary to what our arborist had recommended?
We do have larger caliper trees. They exist.
Schedule here, and I recognize, I see that you.
So if you see the bigger circles, there's little circles, which are the little guys, the 5 foot high, if you look on the plan. And then the bigger circles range from the 1 to 1.5, and the 2 to 2.5.
Right.
So we do have a mix of big and little there. So the bigger circles are the bigger trees, the little circles are the 5 foot high trees. And each circle is named and shows a code as to its size.
Right, I read that on the table here with regards to the caliper size.
So just so you understand, on the plan, the cover sheet, there's a chart that shows the areas of the buffer, if you look on your cover sheet. And it shows, the bottom chart says quantities as shown. Phase 3 buffer is what we're talking about. And you can see how many trees we're showing and the sizes broken out for you. So you can see the range. And we've got 46 2 to 2.5 inch, 48 1 to 1.5, 100 of the smaller guys, and 26 evergreen trees, just to give you an idea of the ranges.
You just quote, was that phase 3 buffer that you were
Yep.
quoting?
Mhm. The chart above it is what we previously showed, so you can see the changes. But what we're showing is the bottom chart. And that gives you just the mixture of trees. And just to remind you, we are meeting the inch to inch It's a little bit of a different plan, I think. I think it was a great idea to do it this way. It is much, I think, nicer visually to have the up and the down and the different sizes go in. It'll feel much more natural and more in keeping with this property.
Jack, do you have any more questions? Jen, do you have any other questions about it?
No, are we ready to
Yep.
vote?
Ready to vote? Okay, all in favor of this plan with these recommendations that we made? Aye? Aye. Ayes have it, so you're set.
Thanks so much. We're really excited about this.
Okay, and we have 560, 564 Maplewood Avenue.
Haymarket Lane.
Oh, excuse me, yeah, well, I'm losing it here. 2 Haymarket Lane, construct a single-family dwelling.
Hi, I'm Nick Puglisi from Puglisi Brothers Incorporated. This is Nick Vestardes, Vestardes Consultant Engineers. We have an existing lot conforming. It's irregular shaped and sloped. Right at the end of a dead end on Haymarket Lane. It abuts 476 to the east, and a retention basin is to the north. What we have is the driveway coming off the edge of the road, coming into the side of the building, which is actually the front. The front lot, according to the zoning officer, is the western property line. Because it is steep slope, we had to use retaining walls. We're looking at about an 8 foot rise there. The area disturbance, as you can see with the retaining walls in the house is on the print we have marked. I don't know if you can tell they're marked in purple. But we have the tree replacement schedule here. We have 12 being removed and 21 replacing. There is, according to the print, 1 heritage tree. It would be in the very corner of the house here as a 36-inch poplar. I have a handout here showing that it's not actually, it was mismarked on the survey. It's a 3-lead tree according to Pete Corbeau. He's the arborist. I had come out and take a look at everything. And he said because, I'll show you the pictures and you can
put it here, actually.
just put it there.
Yeah.
All right, so if you can zoom in on that. Sorry. But that's the tree. It's 36-inch poplar. According to Pete, most of these trees coming out, if not all, are low-quality poplars. The one tree is mismarked also, according to the print, by species. It is not a poplar. It's a 29-inch American ash. I also have a picture of that. That, according to Pete, is infected with the emerald ash borer. Sorry, Pete wasn't able to make it tonight. It would have been a lot easier. That's what he told me.
It's not in this area.
That's
not in this area.
It's
yet.
not. He told me it was. But he also said that it was struck with lightning, and it's visible in 2 spots. He said the tree's in pretty bad shape and should be removed.
Isn't that, can you point out on the plan where that tree is? Isn't that in your,
Yeah.
it's almost in your footprint, isn't it?
No,
Yeah,
this one is closer to the retention basin on the property line there. I have a picture showing the.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, it's the surveyor mismarked it. I'm
What is
sorry. It's an American ash, according again to Pete. There's a better picture of the damage to the tree. But so that he recommended to come out. And the 36-inch poplar, although it's not probably considered a heritage tree, we did go ahead and we did the tree replacement schedule for a 36-inch tree, just because it kind of fit the landscape we kind of wanted to do, because we do have 476, so we did want to add a lot of trees anyway. And when we take them trees out, we also want to block the retention basin, so we added quite a number of trees along 476 to block the wall, and along the front and the rear to kind of develop an envelope around the house.
So what you're saying is you gave full replacement value to the, as if that was a heritage tree,
As it's
right?
marked, yeah, on the print, as a
You gave full
36-inch
heritage
poplar
value.
tree, yes.
The retention basin is right in front of this property?
It is, yeah, fairly close.
Right
It's
there.
there's probably about a 10-foot break on their side of the property line. From the house, there's a significant break. But at the property line, there's probably 10 foot before it drops off. Maybe more.
So up at your retaining wall, what's the height and what's the, what are you building the retaining walls out of?
They are, they're either going to be an EP Henry. I don't have actual architectural drawings on anything yet. We're not that far along. It's only under agreement of sale, so it's kind of just getting there. But we were planning on doing an EP, like a 3-tier EP Henry wall, each being just about 4 foot, a little less, and either that or we're going to use the Ready Rocks. We're not sure. The Ready Rock, the gravity wall. So
And it's on steep slopes there, or steep slopes is right behind that?
yes, yeah, we're basically going to flatten it. We're going to use the retaining walls and build on a flat lot, basically, in essence. So.
Okay, you showing your soil stockpile here?
Yeah, and most of it's really going to be hauled off. There's really not going to be a whole lot on site because it is a tight site and it is heavily wooded. There's really not a lot of places to put it, so the majority of it will be hauled off. Yeah, and that's just topsoil that is showing on the print. It's not all the soil.
So you're showing, oh, right, okay, I got it. And that is, all your utilities are proposed right there with your gas, water, and
Yes.
electric? All the easements going through the neighbor's property, everything's going that way?
Yeah.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, the lot was originally subdivided in the early 70s. So we're just kind of working off. It took a while to find that print and get it all together. And there really wasn't much on it.
Is this the lot as you come in off of Clyde on the private drive on the left?
Yeah, that's what it looks. Yeah, it looks like a private drive. It's actually Haymarket
We
Lane.
just did one next door, right?
Yeah,
So
we did 4. I know 4 went through here before me, according to the property owner.
Right, that's the applicant that's going to work across the street to beautify, clean up and beautify
Right.
that area, and the basin,
Right in front of this place.
right, and he
Right.
was going to do some work to the basin also,
Yeah.
the previous applicant.
Which I have no problem teaming up with him, and I kind of honestly planned on seeing if I could clean up the retention basin as it is. And the lot is, there is a lot of fallen trees and branches on the lot, which will all be cleared.
Where is your seepage bed on this plan?
There isn't one, and I was in, Nick can probably tell you about that.
Yeah, we were, I guess because the basin was there originally, it probably predated some of the stormwater, so we're actually piping right to the inlet with the roof drainage.
In accordance with the,
Yeah, that's what the town engineer wanted.
Just so the commission knows, so this hasn't gotten its grading permit approval yet, and that's where all that's going to be going through with the fine tooth comb. Their drainage, what they can do, what they can't do, what they request a waiver for.
Do I see that piping detail on this going to that retention basin?
should be on, first plan.
It's on the first sheet. That comes across from your letters.
One more time for me?
Oh, sure. Right here along the front of the house.
Yep.
And then it shoots over that way to the inlet. There's letters on the lines there.
That's your sewer line, right?
Yeah, there's a sewer line as well, but there's a storm line. Sewer line
Has an S on it.
has, yeah, the storm is a dashed line
Storm?
with letters in
Storm's a
circles.
dash line?
Yeah. Goes right across here, across the front.
Yeah, it's hard to see, isn't it?
If I could ask the applicant, so if in the grading, so right now, you're proposing no stormwater management, just conveyance to the inlet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so if in the grading permit process, that's not allowed, there's a distinct possibility they won't. They're going to look for you to do stormwater management of some sort. Where do you think that might go if that occurs? Because depending on what happens in the, I guess what I'm getting at, depending on what happens in the grading permit review, if stormwater management is required, it could have to come back to this commission because there's going to be, you're tight on room in the way it is now. Your LOD is really, you're keeping it tight. I understand why with the retaining walls and everything. But that's a possibility because the ordinance, unless you can't, the ordinance is requiring stormwater management.
I do have verbal from the township commissioner that our stormwater plan is okay. He did, Matt Schultz did review it, and he told me it was okay, but, I mean, if something did happen.
I'm sorry, could you speak into the mic?
Yeah, I did have a verbal communication with Matt Schultz, the township engineer, stating that the stormwater was okay, and as well as the retaining walls and the steep slope. But so I'm really not. I don't know what I would do at this point because I was told otherwise that I could do that.
Well, I'll be talking with Matt. Matt's not the township engineer. He works. He's with Gannon Plumbing. Works for us in these reviews.
Okay.
Because somebody has to look at the existing stormwater management basin.
Right.
Okay, as opposed to just piping into it. There has to be some documentation as to what's happening, and that development was built in the 70s, so that well predates our stormwater management ordinance. I'll talk to Matt, who will then call you also.
The only conceivable place to place your seepage bed would be in the top right-hand corner of the plan.
We'd probably go under the driveway, actually.
Is that right? Okay, well, to move you along here, I would suggest that the board, if we saw fit, we would attach conditions that in the event that it did not go into the driveway, which is a distinct possibility that it could, and it ends up in this top right-hand corner, which would eliminate the poplars. There seems to be 3 poplars sort of right in the way of one potential location. That we just attach conditions where you guys could make a compensatory contribution, unless you wanted to replant on site at the bottom of the site.
Either way.
But that would at least keep you moving.
Right, yeah, it's fine, either way.
Just in the top, above that one corner, you have a 14-inch tulip poplar above your proposed retaining wall, close to the steep slopes there.
Right.
Just in that condition, if you're, if your after dig of this wall on these steep slopes starts to undermine this 14-inch poplar, I would recommend it for removal also, being that you're going to be pretty close to its root system on that top side there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. With the same terms for compensatory or...
Right, for that one tray.
Yeah. That's not a problem.
Just on this plan, it's indicating that on this, on the west side of the proposed driveway, there's a 26-inch shared poplar between you and the neighbor here.
Yes.
It is going to have some impact on it due to these grade line changes. Well, you can't, is there going to be, there's not going to be grade line changes on the steep slopes, right? It looks like they can't cut it on the steep slope, can they? They're going to tie it into that. So you have proposed grade line changes underneath the canopy of that 26-inch tulip poplar into those steep slopes there?
The hatching is actually erosion control blanket.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, I thought that indicated the steep slopes. So you're going to be, and due to, if the location of this plotting of the tree is correct, it's a shared tray between you and the neighbor, so there's shared ownership there. So we want to be particularly careful about these grade changes going into the critical root zone of that tree due to the fact that it's not entirely your tree. So that in conjunction with your driveway cut, there's going to be considerable disturbance to this poplar that's does not wholly belong to you. So in that case, the neighbor might need to be notified on your intent of disturbance to the root system of the tree and the fact that there may be some damage to the tree itself due to your construction process here. So I would recommend tightening up those grade lines if you can, either with maybe some boulders or something that would be set onto those slopes so you don't have to cut that back as hard underneath into the critical root zone of that poplar tray, lessen the extent of the damage. Because at this point, you're going to be halfway around it with disturbance between the wall, the grading, and the driveway. So the likelihood of that tree surviving is going to be 50-50. So I think the neighbors should be notified on that by the arborist. And if those grade lines could be cut back with the use of some boulders or some other kind of retaining system rather than drive those topo lines underneath of that tree would benefit it. Okay. Jack, you got any other questions? Jen, we got good on this? Go to vote with those recommendations to approve as planned with if the township rejects the stormwater, Steve, and they can't put it on the driveway, and it has to go in where these poplars are. On that right side, on that east side, can we stipulate now, or does it have to come back to us to review that plan?
I would suggest that the plan come back to you.
Okay.
I think there's going to be
Some changes to it?
significant additional disturbance.
Okay. So as is now, if the engineers agree to this plan, we're fine with our recommendations. If not, it just comes back to us. Okay. All in agreement? Ayes have it, so take it from there. Okay, we have 300 Upper Gulf, raise existing dwelling, construct new. Project, 800 cubic yards of dirt off-site, 5 trees being removed.
Good evening, gentlemen, madam. My name's John Smirga. I'm the engineer who prepared this drawing. This is a single-family house. It exists right now on the corner of Upper Gulf and Pine Tree. This plan that you see in front of you is the existing condition. The house has been derelict for a number of years. It's heavily overgrown and heavily wooded, as you can see. It's the intent of the developer who's standing next to me, Mr. McKenzie, to raise the house and build a new house directly on top of where the old house was, and obviously a different configuration and different size. But we're going to go from this particular condition to that. We're going to reuse the existing driveway. We'll add to it slightly as it attaches to the new house, but the bulk of the driveway will remain in place. There's no sewer there now. There's a cesspool that will be taken out or abandoned, and as you can see from this drawing, a new septic system will be put in place. Stormwater management is also required and spotted on the plan. All the testing for the septic system and the stormwater management has been done. This plan is now under review by Matt Schultz and Gannett Fleming for a grading permit. As you can see from the existing conditions, we are going to remove, there's 31 trees on the site. We're going to remove 5 of them. 2 of them are being replaced because they're in close proximity to the septic system and the stormwater management, so they will be taken down to give unimpeded flow and unimpeded construction of those 2 facilities. The other trees are in close proximity to the existing house, so they will be taken down because the foundations and footings will interfere with them. Remaining trees will be kept and protected during construction. It's the intent of the developer. This house is a spec house. It will be built and then marketed. What we would like to do is to hold off doing any landscaping plans right now and let the owners who are going to buy this house for a considerable amount of money to work with the developer on coming up with a landscaping plan, foundation plan, and replacement of any trees that would be necessary. It's the full intent of the developer to have a rather elaborate and adequate budget for the landscaping plan and the foundation plans. As you can see, 26 trees will still remain on site. The site is very heavily overgrown. All that will be cut back. Excuse me. So the lot would become more area and open, and to save all the canopy trees that are there. And as you can see, there's quite a number of big trees on the site that will be guarded with tree protection and protected during the construction.
On the last page of your plans, the TS topsoil stockpile there.
Yes.
Is that correct?
The TS, yes.
And the bold line surrounding is the limit of disturbance?
Yes. There is one change to this drawing. We're showing a gas line that's going across the front lawn, going out into Upper Gulf Road. That is going to be eliminated. It's just too expensive and too long a run, and we would have to open up Upper Gulf Road, which we don't particularly want to do. So we're probably going to take that line out and put a propane tank in.
So you don't have a footprint for the new home yet?
Yeah, the footprint is on the site, sir.
Okay, can you show, I can't quite, it's that odd shape there going around?
Yeah, diagonally across the building envelope.
So the house is going to be?
It's that shape right there.
Uh-huh.
And you can see the existing house underneath it.
Yeah, that's probably what's confusing.
So, the only grading change, you're showing a new septic system. Is that the field there, or?
Yeah, that's the field. And the tank, and the pumps, not pumps, but there'll be a tank and a peat filter system.
So you're showing no grade change around that, that's going in?
Just, there's slight grade change. I mean, where the house site is fairly flat. There'll be a little grade change. As you can see, there's 2 or 3 contour lines at the, I guess, the easterly part of the house that is going to change, but there's no trees that's going to be affected by that.
All right, on the north side, that 36-inch maple on the north side?
Yes.
You're going to be way into that.
I'm showing keeping it. Obviously, if during construction it becomes a problem, we can work with the arborist if we have to take it down and then replace that as a heritage tree, but we're going to try to save it.
I'd recommend showing it now because this limited disturbance is right under the critical root zone of the tree, and your tree protection is hugging the foundation, so.
Yeah, you're right.
There's no way you're going to be able to build a house and not be into that hard.
It does have the 40-inch right behind it, which will still give, you know, the view of a, you know, a tree in the backyard.
Somewhat like to keep it if possible.
Your limited disturbance is already into the critical root zone, and just on your overdig, you're already going to be about 10 foot physically from the trunk of the tree. And then to build a house, you're going to be right there. So,
Are you talking about problems with the top of the tree? More the canopy disturbance or the root system?
The root system.
yeah, just the roots, yeah. Just with the compaction and the disturbance to that tree. You could try to save it. I just think that there's just going to be too much going on to physically build the house. You're definitely going to have to push back your tree protection fence because you can't build a house with the tree protection fence where it is right now.
You're correct.
So you got to give yourself a couple feet to throw a ladder.
Well, we're trying to save it. If it dies during construction, obviously, then we'll be required to take it down and replace it according to your ordinance.
I think where he's going with this is that the tree will die,
I'm just-
or will be impacted at a minimum. So maybe why don't we just,
I would say do your best to try to keep it, but incorporate the compensatory planting into your tree list now. And if it lives, it lives, but I think it's going to have a much diminished life.
All right, so you want me to show it as the 6th tree, and we'll try to save it if possible.
Try to save it as possible, but show it as
Okay.
coming down. Is there any way to give the, on the south side, there's a row of nice maples here, 36-inch maple.
Along the road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there some room to give them a little bit more room on that, with that tree protection, and just incorporate that grouping of trees along Pine Tree and Upper Gulf into just one large tree protection fence, so that there'd be no possible egress from the corner to your, oh, you got your spiller there, right? That spiller's not shown on that. It's,
No, the spillway is shown on a different plan.
I got it.
But the spillway is going to go in last. We could extend the tree protection to do that, and then obviously, it's a 4-inch line and a level spreader. It's a small little piece of construction, so we can take that section of fence down late in the game. I mean, 95% of the construction will be done while we're doing that level spreader.
Yeah, if you can keep that tree protection fence up until that point. I mean, even if you could tuck that box up to the east a little bit. How far away do you got to stay from your field with that box? Does it matter?
With the level spreader?
No, with your infiltration bed.
It's not a bed, it's a section of pipe.
No, I'm talking about the physical, the physical big pipes, not the spiller pipe, the unit itself.
I don't get the question, I'm
I'm
sorry.
just saying, if you could move that whole unit up a little bit, you would get the spiller away from being between this area here, between these trees. You wouldn't have to.
It could be adjusted somewhat, 5 feet, something like that, but not much, because, I don't want to get too close to the house, and I still need all my fall
Right.
to
Right.
get into the pipe.
Are you showing any underground electric?
There's, as you can see, there's an existing telephone pole to the east of the existing house. At that point, the 10-inch maple, or right behind the 10-inch maple, and there's an overhead line going into the existing house. We're going to take the underground service from there, going straight across to almost the same corner of the house.
Could you show me that pole again? Oh, you have a pole right there?
See where it says power pole?
I got it. Next to the 10-inch maple?
So my pin would be the underground electric service.
Where would the main construction entrance roadway be?
The driveway.
That would be the driveway.
and you're just going to top the
After
asphalt?
construction, it'll be resurfaced.
Milling it or just overlay?
It's just probably overlay. It may be, some of the cracks may be serviced first, depending on how, how much damage we do to the driveway if it comes too bumpy. So we may put a 2.5, 3-inch covering on it to cover it up.
You don't need any tree protection here. This is limited disturbance here, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think here. Just on this 4 or 5, the note about the electric, just could they note that it has as overhead on the plan?
That's the existing overhead. The new will be underground.
Okay.
In the same spot, basically the same spot. But what's shown as overhead is going to the existing house.
We had a good comment about protecting the rest of the trees. This is going to be, you have a number of decent trees also on the north side, closer to pine tree, a 40-inch maple.
Yes.
Could they be included in your tree protection also?
We're not going to be working out there, but if you wish, yeah, we could put some tree protection in there.
Just to keep all the contractors in check, maybe it would make sense to run some tree protection down the throat of the driveway nearest pine tree, and then swing it out around the 40-inch maple.
Okay.
And then do the same thing with the 36-inch maple, just do a loop on the east crescent of that. And then, I don't have any other comments.
That's good.
You mean like that?
Yep,
And like that?
exactly.
Yep. And also connect it.
Tie that together until you're ready for your spiller there. Okay. All right, do we have any more comment on this one, Chad? Okay, with those recommendations, we're good to go.
Good. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks.
Item?
Good night. We have 700 South Roberts. Construct 611-foot square addition and driveway extension.
Good evening, Board. My name is Dave Bunny. I'm the property owner, and I'm proposing to construct an addition that's only 19 by 24 feet on one end of the left end of the house, the existing structure. There's no trees being impacted, and there's no change in the grades.
Mr. Money, does this reflect all the trees that are on your lot?
Yes.
It does?
Except for the ones that I replaced. The
The compensatory planting trees?
You right on the corner here?
Yes.
You have a new fence?
Yes.
There's a big log laying in the middle of your front yard.
Yes.
What's that?
There were, about a month and a half ago, 2 trees fell, one blocking 320 and one blocking Roberts Road.
Fell down?
And they split in half.
Oh, really?
so-
So we have the proposed drive extension for the new proposed garage,
Correct.
and then on the far side, the opposite side, the proposed bump out,
Correct.
and then in the front, a new porch or something off the front walkway.
It's actually a bump out.
Bump out, okay.
So you're going to keep the other garage?
Correct.
So no soil stock, oh, there's soil stock, that's good, okay.
No trees to be, looks like.
Alright. Okay, you have any questions, Board? Pretty straightforward. All in favor? Okay. Okay. I have one letter here, Sue. Members of Shade Tree Commission. Should I read that, or is that just something for us to review?
Thank you. So we did receive a letter, an anonymous letter, if you will, to the Shade Tree Commission, which we got, what, today? I'm sorry, about a week and a half ago. And basically, the concern is trees that have been taken down off of existing lots in Cornerstone, and it references shade tree meeting minutes where only one tree was allowed to come down. So just looking at this and really not having much to get, there's nobody to contact to get a timeline. Additional trees, if this is correct, were taken down. But as a homeowner, you have the ability to take up to 5 trees down that are less than 30-inch DBH. So even though a work may have come through this commission where X tree was to be removed and there may or may not have been compensatory plantings, we have no real way to go back to see that anything has occurred that does not follow the shade tree ordinance. So usually people do call us when people are taking trees down. Honestly, that's how we find out most of the times in the township when somebody's doing something without coming to this commission or getting a hazardous tree removal permit. So I'm just going to summarize. I won't, again, it's not addressed. I mean, it's not signed, but so they're saying at this one address, there was no tree removal proposed, yet 4 trees were removed and not replaced. If they're under 30 inches, a homeowner has that right to do that. Clearing permit's still required, but they have the right to do that.
They have the right to remove them and not replace them?
Absolutely, up to 5 trees.
Right.
5 trees above that. So the next address, there was no tree removal proposed, yet 2 trees were removed and not replaced. Again, unless one of those 2 was a heritage tree, there's no requirement. And the next one, there was 1 tree proposed to be removed and replaced, yet 4 large trees and 1 small tree removed and none were replaced. So we'll check back on the tree replacement requirement, but small trees under 6 inches, there is no requirement. You're allowed to cut down as many as you want. So I don't know what the small tree was. So I appreciate the resident or whomever sent this. I wish they would sign it, or if you're watching, please call me so I can discuss this with them. But this was addressed to you. It wasn't addressed to Sue or I. And I guess they're just trying to bring to light that they feel there's, an issue. But again, as a homeowner, you do have the right to take these trees down without coming to this commission. You can do that. And in the end, they say in all 11 trees were removed and 0 trees were planted. But it is possible that some of these trees were below the minimum of 6-inch diameter, but certainly not all. But really the critical diameter, the DBH, is 6 to 30. So if you're over 6 and under 30, they're the trees that fall under the shade tree purview, and yet you can remove 5 of them. So, and that was 11 trees on 3 lots. So now you have to split that up. So 11 trees on 1 lot, that's an issue. That's a big issue. But this was 11 trees over, 3 different lots. So I just thought I'd give you that explanation of that. I'm not speaking for the author of the letter.
I did check the grading permits, and the trees were all under 15 inches.
There's no houses on those lots? They're just vacant lots? They're just open lots, Steve?
Now, there are houses on there.
You said you checked the grading permits, Sue? And so what they're calling large trees were 15 or under? Oh, okay. Huh?
If it's a tall tree, they say it's a big tree. But
Sure,
it's still-
sure.
And a 15-inch tree is small.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
We're obligated to give that to you since that was addressed.
Right.
But I mean, if they come before us and they say they're not going to be removing trees, even if they're smaller trees, and then they remove more than they're saying, I mean, isn't there a commitment there if they come before us with their plans and they say they're not?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a fine line there, so if
Right.
an applicant comes to you and says, we're only removing one tree, we don't need compensatory trees.
Right.
You say, please plant one. But as a resident of Radnor Township, let's say their addition or whatever is complete, and they decide that there's 3 additional trees they wish to remove, they don't have to come back to this commission. They don't have to come back to this mission. Sorry, Mr. Doling.
Right. But nothing's been built in these lots, so they're not really residents. That's
There are houses on those lots, just not in the picture. Sue attached the shade tree meeting minutes regarding those lots, or they attached the shade tree minutes from our website. Sorry. So if you look at that sheet, so on the first one, GP 1307, there was a 14 and a 12 removed. On 1310, there was a 1 13-inch oak, 3 12-inch Norway maples, and none of them, as singular lots, none of them require Shade Tree Commission approval. And again, yes, could somebody be conceivably usurping the process without coming to you and saying they're taking down those trees? But in essence, an applicant could come to you with 5 trees showing to be removed on the plan, and no compensatory trees are required by this commission. You would opine on what they might be doing, if they might be damaging other trees, but as an applicant, someone could come before you with an addition or a new house that shows 5 trees being removed under 30 inches, and there's no requirement by the ordinance for them to do compensatory plantings, although this commission could ask for it. But
we have a number of hazard tree reports here. All these were approved by,
Mr. Hosback.
just a quick question on a couple here. This 50-inch yoke of barley cone, was there compensatory trees asked to be replanted on that? 16?
Six are going in there.
6 are going in?
They were notified, yeah. There was a email drop that they had never gotten or
Okay.
received. And I spoke to Mr. Hosback this morning, so they were sent an email. Same
Okay.
way with the 65-inch Linden, where there was, both of those were 6.
Both of those were 6?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Jack, you might, this is a pretty significant tree, this white oak here on
Yeah, is
Barley
this in a
Cone.
big package here?
There's a whole bunch of trees there. I drove by it the other day. It's about 200 years old.
This one?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's coming out, and they've asked them to replant with 6
Right.
trees. And I just wanted to review this, the other ones are pretty straightforward, John reviewed them. I just want to review this 65-inch linden tree. On St. David's. Also a big canopy tree, which has been condemned here, so. Codominant stems. So there's 6 more for the linden tree too, so?
6 for the Linden and 6 for the 50-inch.
Okay.
Susan, on the quotes from the various tree companies in here, that'd be an obvious place to look to see who's licensed in the township. Is there any way we could cross-reference that?
give a hazardous tree, we don't give permission for removal unless they're licensed for this.
So you do, before they,
No contractor of any type in Radnor, building or tree, can do any work without being licensed.
okay.
And John reviewed this, the black walnut also, he signed off on that? Okay.
And off each one.
The verbiage is odd here. How do you prove it become a slip and fall hazard? Is that the hazard? Okay, I think, do we need any more review on these hazard trees, Jack, or are you comfortable with those? We have replacements on the 72-inch, 65-inch linden, and on that large 50-inch white oak on barley cone. All the rest have been reviewed by the township arborist. Just wanted you to look at the verbiage on this walnut tree when you have a chance. All right, that concludes our September meeting. I think we've hit everything we need to. Thank you all. What's the hazard? Wait, I don't see it. The fruit is that.